We are told that Saturn is the first day of the Japanese calendar, and on this day, Muslims celebrate their Muharram. They respect this day a lot and consider it a good day. But some people believe that on this day, bad souls come in their powerful form which kills people with their evil power. Immediately after this, we see the scene of a hospital where we see a lady whose name is Lastry who is running around in fear. After this, she comes to the operation theater and asks a doctor where her child is. The doctor tells her to relax. But then that lady, i.e. Lastry, slaps the doctor. Then she injures all the people present there and comes out of that room and locks the room. After this, she runs away and goes to another room where the newborn baby was kept. She takes both the nurses out of there and starts looking for her child. She picks up a baby and says that this is my child. But when the nurse outside looks at her, she says that no, this is not your child. Hearing this, Lastry goes so crazy that she kills the baby. Then the nurse outside tells her to relax. But she had completely lost her mind after this. Some doctors and hospital security come there and try to stop her. But now she goes even crazier. She drops the chemical and fire starts here. This is the first chapter of the 1982 incident. After this, the story comes to the present time where we meet a writer named Bayu. Bayu has come here to his uncle to borrow some money. The house is very less in the market. His wife Adinda was also going to have a baby, so he wants to rent a house for his wife. Bayu's uncle tells him that I have a house outside the city which you can use as long as you want. After this, his uncle gives him some money and house keys and says that you do not return this money. Now Adinda and Bayu take their car and go to the house made in the jungle. Bayu is very happy to see her uncle. After this, they both go inside the house and start setting everything. Then Bayu gets a photo album of his uncle in which there are pictures of some of his friends. In the same album, we also see the picture of the Lastry. Then Bayu tells Adinda that there is also a hospital nearby. So if you ever have any problem, tell me, because we can easily go there. The next day, early morning, Bayu leaves his house and has an important meeting with the publisher. Now because Adinda is alone in the house, she goes to a nearby market where a lady tells Adinda that the night of the first Sadasuru is coming. That's why everyone is preparing for it. But Adinda does not know what this Sadasuru is. That's why Adinda says that I am not here and I live in that house made in the jungle nearby. Hearing this, the lady becomes very shocked and starts winding up her work. Because of this, Adinda also goes ahead from there. Then Adinda sees an old homeless woman who looked very strange, and she was constantly looking at Adinda. Then seeing this, Adinda does not feel good, so she comes back to her house. Then Adinda comes home, and when she is working in her kitchen, then suddenly the knife gets stuck in the cutting board itself. Then seeing this, Adinda gets very surprised and someone's voice starts coming from the storeroom. From the storeroom, someone was constantly screaming, and seeing this, Adinda gets scared. That's why she takes a knife and goes towards the storeroom where we can see a shadow standing behind her. Then after a while, when Bayu comes back to his house, he sees that the lights of the whole house are off. At the same time, his wife Adinda was also not visible to him anywhere. But then he sees some drops of blood on the floor. Then Bayu reaches the storeroom where he reaches and sees that someone has killed Adinda mercilessly and taken her child out. Then seeing this, Bayu gets very scared and starts crying. But then he sees that Adinda is still alive, which is indicating him to look back. As soon as Bayu looks back, suddenly the last day's soul attacks him. But then suddenly Bayu's eyes open, and we find out that this was just a nightmare. He also tells Adinda about his nightmare, on which he tells him that you should pray to God. But because Bayu did not believe in God, he refuses Adinda. The next day, Bayu goes for a meeting again where Adinda is alone at home again. That's why today she calls her mother and starts talking to her. But then she notices that the swing outside her house is moving by itself. She ignores this and continues to talk to her mother. There we see Bayu, who is in a meeting with his publisher. He tells Bayu that your book sale is very low, and he advises him that now you will have to write some horror-type stories. Otherwise, if this continues, our company will have so much loss that the company will shut down. There we see Adinda, who is sleeping in her house, but then suddenly she starts feeling dizzy. She starts vomiting. And here we see a very disturbing scene. Some hair comes out of her mouth along with 3 blades. Adinda gets very scared seeing this. But then Adinda starts vomiting again. And this time a newborn baby comes out of her mouth, which is quite surprising. And she sees in the mirror that some souls have caught her. But then suddenly Adinda's eyes open. Everything was normal till now. But now she really starts feeling pain. That's why she starts messaging Bayu about her pain. As soon as Bayu gets her message, he immediately comes home. And he takes Adinda to the same hospital which he had mentioned earlier. Their 2 nurses take Adinda inside the wheelchair. Till then Bayu is filling some forms outside. But then he notices that it is 3 o'clock in the hospital. But actually the time is 8:15. So he thinks that maybe the clock is broken. After this he goes to Adinda where he tells Dr. Bayu that you did a very good job. You brought your wife at the right time. But still it may take 4 to 5 hours to have a baby. Now Adinda tells Vayu that after having a baby, I will not go back to that house. Because I feel weird there. I don't feel good. Then Vayu tells Adinda that don't worry. After the operation, we three will shift to a better place. After this, Vayu admits Adinda to the hospital and leaves for home, so that he can go home and pack all his stuff. Adinda sees a nurse's shadow in the glass in front of her, and she is the same nurse who had tried to relax Lastry many years ago. And in the meantime, a doctor comes there. So here we can understand that this is the same hospital from 1982 in which Lastry died by burning. Now suddenly that doctor starts hitting his head on the wall, due to which his blood starts flowing. After this, he leaves from there in a very strange way. As soon as he leaves, the lights of the whole hospital go off, due to which Adinda gets very scared. That's why she comes out of the operation theater and starts calling the nurse. She sees no one there except herself. When she goes ahead, she sees two nurses standing in one room. That's why she goes inside the room to tell them. But as soon as she goes inside, the door of the room closes. But then she sees the nurse who had been there for many years coming towards her. That's why Adinda closes her eyes in fear. But when she opens her eyes again, she finds herself standing outside that room. There Vayu takes all the stuff from home and leaves for the hospital again. On the way, he sees a shop open and he stops there to eat. Where Vayu asks the shopkeeper why everyone has closed their shops so soon. He replies that today is the first night of Satsuru in which the bad souls become more powerful. That's why everyone goes home in fear. Then the shopkeeper asks Vayu, why are you roaming outside so late at night? Vayu replies that my wife is about to deliver and I have got her admitted in a nearby hospital. The shopkeeper is surprised to hear this and says that there is no hospital nearby, and the hospital you are talking about has been closed for many years. Hearing this, Vayu gets very scared and takes his car and leaves for the hospital. When he reaches there, he sees that the shopkeeper was right. There is no hospital here because there was an old ruins. Then Vayu takes the torch and goes inside the ruins and starts looking for his wife Adinda. On the other side, we see Adinda, from which the ruins were still looking like a hospital, which was looking completely new. Adinda sees a sweeper there whose neck is injured, which makes Adinda's condition worse, and she runs away from there. We see Vayu, who hears Adinda screaming but she couldn't see her. Adinda is now trapped in the world of those bad souls. Now Vayu follows Adinda's voice and goes to a room where she sees a burnt, dead body behind a cupboard. That's why he starts going from there. But then the soul of that burnt, dead body comes in front of him. Afraid of this, Vayu runs away from there and goes to another room and locks himself up. There Adinda was repeatedly seeing the last day's soul. That's why Adinda runs away and comes to a morgue. All the dead bodies lying on the floor come back to life. That's why Adinda comes out of there again. Now Adinda sees the last day in her human form who was sitting somewhere and talking to her child. But then suddenly she attacks Adinda, which makes Adinda fall down, and her mind goes into a flashback. Then we find out that Kurt had performed a ritual on the last day's child along with the hospital team. That's why Adinda was sacrificed for a devil. Meanwhile, Adinda falls unconscious and some spirits of the hospital take her from there and start operating on her. There when Vayu falls unconscious, he gets a dream in which his father tells him that when you were born I promised to give you to a cult group. But because of your weakness, I couldn't do that. But then suddenly Vayu comes to his senses and he starts hearing Adinda's screams. That's when the souls start moving towards the child. That's when the homeless old woman comes who saves Adinda and throws something on the souls so that all the souls start burning and start moving away from there. That's when the old homeless woman Adinda and her child come out of there. That's when she finds Vayu on the way whom Adinda was about to see. That's when Adinda tries to snatch her child, but because of some invisible power, she can't do that. That's why she attacks Vayu and takes him under her control. Now Adinda leaves from there and goes to another room, but that's when Vayu comes there who is now in the control of the blaster. That's why he wants to kill Adinda and her child. But that's when the old woman attacks Vayu, and that old woman comes to Adinda and attacks her as well. That's when Adinda falls unconscious. Next morning, Adinda finds out that the old woman has taken her child. Now Vayu puts Adinda in the car and leaves from there, but that's when he hears his child crying. That's when he follows the sound of the child and reaches the old woman. Now Vayu hits him from behind and makes him unconscious. After that, he takes the child and leaves from there. After that, the old woman stands up and starts dancing. So here we find out that this old woman was actually working for that cult. After that, the old woman calls someone and says that I have performed a ritual on that child. That means the ritual on Adinda's child was already done. That means now there is a devil soul inside him, who now punished Adinda for his actions. That means everything that we saw in the movie was already planned. And in between all this, Vayu's uncle was involved too. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on future videos. Thank you for watching.